So you have a Padlet, and this is where I want you to start telling me more of the details of your course unit. So think about the name. That's for you to answer. How do you respond? Well, you just need to click on the plus symbol here and then add your response very, very easily. Tell us what pedagogical approach or approaches you want to promote, but also tell us why. Why is this approach important to you? More specifically to your students. So if you say that you want students to be able to learn how to cook something, then I'm guessing your pedagogical approach is experiential learning, because you want them to actually do things as they are learning. And that would be just, you know, showing them the processes there in the kitchen and cooking and so on and so forth. How many modules and what kind of themes you're going to cover for each module. And then you get to the learning outcomes, which is the fourth column here, where you tell us the broader learning outcomes. So what your students are going to be able to achieve at the end of the course. So think about the bigger outcomes. What I showed you before, these are more specific learning outcomes. We don't want that for now. We just want bigger learning outcomes, so the broader ones. So you have to answer question 1, question 2, question 3, and question 4. So going to Canvas, page 7.7, you have your link to your Padlet, and that's what we're going to be working on for the following 10 more minutes, just to get you started. Do we know what we are doing? Any questions before I send you back to your breakout room? I want to recap then what the elements of learning outcomes are. So we have the audience, we have the specific task, and we have the context. And that's what I will be looking at and probably making comments in your Padlet if there's something that is not so clear for me. So the questions you have answered in the Padlet are the first 4 questions. The name of the course, what pedagogical approach, tell us how many modules, and your learning outcomes. So there's a 4th question that I forgot to put, but should be on screen as well. It is in Canvas that you find your Padlet to your group. So in case you are working with somebody at a distance, they also know where to go and see what you have produced so far in this session. But let's move on to the storyboarding. So we're going to the second stage of the model of online design, online course design. So in theory, this step is done for every module. So if you said that your unit, your course unit is going to have 4 modules, so you do this for every module, yeah? This is where you take a section of your outline, as just one bit of it, to start thinking about how that section, how that module will look like. So this is when we start developing the specifics of every module. So I'll give you an example. I'm going to go back just to my example there. So when you have answered the question, or when you answer the question, how many modules, and tell us the topics of these modules, you are basically completing your outline. So you're saying, this is my course, these are my modules, and these are my topics. So the learning outcome that you have developed so far goes in here in the very, very top bit. This, yeah. We haven't touched any learning outcomes that are specific yet. We will do that in the storyboarding process. So we're moving then from the outline to the specifics of the course. So If you focus on module 1 of your unit, you will be asked to develop more learning outcomes. It could be 1, 2, or 3, depending on what you want that session to cover and what you want your students to be able to do. As simple as that. So if you say that module has only 1 week, which is what we normally would do, every module has 1 week, which is equivalent to 2 hours per week, just as we have at university. Every module that you have is basically covered in 2 hours a week, which is what we do in TLO, for instance. But you could also say it's only going to be 1 hour. That's up to you. You need to cater for the needs of your course and your students. Always think about your students. So we're going to start filling up the gaps in the specifics. So that's where the focus is for the storyboarding process, which is the second stage, second stage of the HEL model. Right, so I'm going to continue where I was. So basically the storyboarding process, you do the same thing you're going to do today as an exercise, but for every module. Now, because that requires a lot of more tasks, the idea is that you only do the storyboarding process for 1 of your modules. This is when you start developing your learning materials as well. So only 1 module, focus on 1. It could be the first one, it could be the last one, up to you, but focus on 1 module. Tell us about the learning outcomes of that module, and then the rest of the elements, which I will tell you in a minute. So basically, don't think about big. This is where you think small. It's 1 module, 1 session of the module. That's it. And what is storyboarding? This is a process where you start planning out that chunk of learning. So you focus on the specifics. You think about the kind of activities, the kind of assessment you're going to incorporate in the session, the kind of interactions, the kind of technology that you will be using for that specific teaching session, teaching module. So I'll give you an example, which every time you see something that is underlined, that's where you can click. For instance, if I click here, it takes me to a page, which you might need to log in with your details. Just 1 second. If this doesn't work for you, you need to let me know so that I can make the access easier for you. So you have there a full presentation of the HEL model, which I am doing for you. I just basically copied and pasted and put it in Google Slides. But if you click on the second link, which is this one here, Builders T, this is an example of storyboarding that has been developed in Poplet. There you go. So you have many elements. I'm not sure if you can see. So you could do your storyboarding in another tool, such as this one, Poplet, but we're doing this so far in a Padlet. So this learning outcome, is for 1 session. So think about the color yellow here represents 1 module. So there is 1 module whose learning outcome is you will be able to choose the correct equipment to make a cup of builder's tea. Okay, very simple. How to make tea, that's the whole course, but we need to start with choosing the ingredients. That's the learning outcome. What do we need? Well, the pink bit is all about the activities. So it's a hotspot image, not the activities, the materials. So you tell them, you basically say, this is the moment you say how you're going to present that session. So you might show them an image and ask them, what are we doing? What are we making today? What is this? A cup of tea. Okay. And you ask people to select the correct equipment. So what do you need to make a cup of tea? A cup, the kettle, some water, your tea bag. If you like milk. If you like sugar, well, you need to have some sugar. Yeah, for instance. Then, so every color represents different things. We will look into the color bit in a minute because I can't remember all of them, but when we get to the Padlet, it is clear. So if you want to see an example, this is a learning outcome. It tells us the kind of activities, it tells us the kind of interactions, it tells us the kind of digital tools that we will use. I'll give you another example. There you go. A tea fit for the queen, the same topic, yeah, but just different purposes. It's not a builder's tea, but this is a more sophisticated kind of tea. Our learning outcome for that specific module is students will be able to make a cup of tea fit for the queen. Okay, so what do we need to do first? What they need to do second, and so on. As I said, every color has different purposes. And I'll show you what the colors mean in this picture here. So we have the green in the Padlet that you're going to be working on today represents the learning outcome. So this is where you write in that Post-it note that is green. This is where you write your learning outcome. The Post-it note that is yellow, this is where you write the kind of assessment you're going to be using for that particular session. So an assessment, when we talk about assessment, could be such as a quiz or just general questions, or you ask students to give you some feedback, or you make, it doesn't have to be summative, it could be formative assessment. Then the pink color is a kind of activity that is asynchronous. The purple color is activities that are synchronous. And then the blue color is the content you're going to be teaching. You have an example there, which I can't read because I'm not wearing my glasses at the moment. But when you click on the link that I mentioned before, and it takes you to this PowerPoint, you will be able to see those examples a bit more clear. So blue is a content. Pink is asynchronous interactions. Purple is asynchronous learning outcomes. Green, assessment. Yellow. So when you go to your own, how to get to the Padlet? Let me see. Where did I leave the link? So when you get back to your Padlet, and I'm just going to take this Padlet as an example, the fifth column here has the storyboarding Padlet. That's where you need to click. So you open your Padlet there, and that's what you have. You have all the colors for you to edit and put information in those colors. And you are free to move around this, yeah? The idea is that you move this around and you cater. So there's no right or wrong way to do the storyboarding. Look at the storyboarding as a mind map. So you choose how to move around the mind map. What you're not supposed to move is the white color. That stays as it is. Don't move that. Just move the rest of the colors, but don't move the titles. So the titles represent Salmon's model of online learning. This is when you also, apart from thinking about activities, digital tools, content, type of assessment, this is where you also need to think about the steps of online design that Gilly Salmon proposes. So you need to tell us what activities in your session will provide access and motivation. What activities provide socialization? What activities provide information exchange? What activities are all about knowledge construction? And what activities are about development? So this is why you need to kind of be able to move around your post-it notes. If I need to create more asynchronous activities, you just need to click on this plus symbol, title. I need more post-its on this topic. I publish it, and then I just color it. I go to edit, cannot see the color. There you go. Like you color it in the same color so that you know that also belongs to asynchronous sessions, for instance. So you're free to create more post-its to cater for the needs of that specific module. Now I'm gonna stop explaining there, and I want to go back to you to ask if you have any questions so far about the storyboarding process.
I'm interested is we are doing, for example, I'm planning to do 6-week course, and I am doing salmon model for the 6 week, or I am doing it for week 1. Is it possible? Yeah.
Only start with week 1 first, because this is where in the storyboarding process is where we can get lost in our thinking. Remember, it's just one session, one module, one session, and that's the focus of the storyboarding so far. You're supposed to do these for every, for every week, for every session that you have every week. But we started with one module, one session, just to get the practice of storyboarding that specific session. Yeah.
Okay, because I remember when I learned about Salmon's model, I tried to reflect myself, and in the middle of the course, I was still like stage 3. That is why I was like, okay, now, so we are doing it for every model, but as well as for the whole model as well. Yes, like, okay.
So it's repeat, repeat, repeat for every session in your module. Why? Because you need to know what every session will have, what kind of digital tools, what kind of synchronous or asynchronous interactions, what kind of content, what kind of learning outcomes. So if we start thinking big, it's so difficult. That's why we start from one session, and then you do the same for another session, and so on and so forth. And that helps you to then, it's like the bottom-up approach to develop a course unit. So you have an outline which gives you a purpose, so you know what module, what topic for each module is it the one you're going to cover. But then we start top down, and then we go bottom up. Think about the specifics of each module.
And is it possible, for example, skip one stage and maybe you don't have anything to write there, or you have to include all of them?
Well, the idea is that with the model of Salmon is that you think about trying to cover all of the steps of, or most of them, because you could put a post-it note and say, this skip will be completed in the next module. So if that's the case, that 2 modules or 2 sessions are connected to, then make sure that that step is completed. And you could write it there just as an explanation. So this module and the next one will cover the steps, more details in the second storyboarding. As simple as that. Think about this as a lesson plan, basically. But yeah, that's the idea, that you think about, as you're thinking about materials, activities, content, assessment, you're also thinking about the steps of Salmon's model. Right, we're going to go into the practice, which is what you need to, to get to experience. We have 20 minutes for this activity. you might not finish, so you take it for homework, but I will be visiting your rooms to answer any questions you may have. Do we know what we're doing? So you go into your Padlet, big first Padlet, and then the storyboarding would be on your 5th column there. I'll stop sharing now and then send you back to your breakout rooms. All right, so just a couple of reminders of what we did today. So we continue talking about, things to keep in mind to produce an online course. We talk about activities, digital tools, flexible learning, flipped classroom facilitation, making sure that our online course has this student-centered focus as well, different pedagogies, critical digital pedagogies to keep in mind. We also said that anything you see on this Google Slides that has, underlined, it's a link that you are, given for you to explore further. We continue then with the development of our own online course. We went into step 1, which is developing the broader or bigger learning outcomes for the whole course unit. And then to move on to the storyboarding, we just focus on one module of your unit, one specific session to start the planning of that session. Storyboarding is another way in which you can engage in lesson planning. And we talked about it as being bottom up, the second step, and the first step being more like top down in the development process. We reviewed what learning outcomes are. I will check your Padlets, after the end of the session, give you some feedback. So keep an eye on your Padlets to see my comments. We also gave some examples of storyboarding, which is again, mapping out what the session will cover in terms of tools, activities, content, assessment, and more specifically for us, because we're following the HEL model, which includes Gillies-Salmon's model, making sure that we're also keeping in mind what kind of stages are we covering as we develop our activities. So that's what you did in the second part of the session. You thought about more learning outcomes, but this time more specific learning outcomes. Those learning outcomes specific for that one module, one session. And as you were mapping out, which you might still need to, continue doing the map up of your session, you are then encouraged to think about the learning outcomes and making sure that these things are matching with one another. So those are the things that you were thinking of: activities, assessment, and so on and so forth. In our Canvas, you have all of the Padlets provided. So this is what we did for step 1. That's the instructions. Those are the Padlets, the Padlet links, which now I have made available for you to be able to edit and move around. Then we talked about, storyboarding, this is where the slides are. In this page on Canvas 7.7, you have, again, the reflective journal prompts that you could think of. You could also develop your own questions as you start writing down that journal. But the idea is that you reflect on the group work that you did, but also on the step of the HEL model that we covered. So this session, we covered 2 steps, which is the aims and learning outcomes and the storyboarding process. And tell us how you felt, what you learned. If you have experience developing lesson plans, for instance, how is this process different from developing a lesson plan. What things would you improve in the storyboarding process and why? Then the next bit of Canvas, page 7.7.1, we have that learning the storyboarding step, which again gives you the links to the Padlet, the questions that you worked on today, and that's the end of week 9. So next week we will go into steps 10 and 11. Now next week, because this is the week 10, where you really need to sit down and develop something, which is that learning material. The idea is that you come to the session and use this space in our video conferencing tool to, you know, develop things. So you could decide to come to the session and do it with my presence there, because I'm here and I would prefer to be here and give you feedback or give you some help, than, you know, the other option, which is you could decide not to come, do your own thing, and then in week 11 present your, you know, your development, your progress. So it's up to you. You could decide to come to the session or not. But you're welcome to join it and to get my feedback. That's up to you. Again, I'm being flexible because I want you to take decisions as well. If you're here, I will provide you with feedback. I can help you in any other steps that we have seen, such as learning outcomes, storyboarding. I can give you more materials. I can tell you about tools. Otherwise, you could do that, you know, separately. But you have two options: either attend the session or not coming to the session. I will still record. I will put a video where I'm going to talk about the last steps of the model, which are reality check and evaluation. But that's going to be a pre-recorded video for you to watch. And that's going to be part of the materials that I'm going to upload in Canvas. So in that way, we're complementing all of the steps of the HEL model. So with the video materials that I will put, you have the whole process of what online course design would look like if you're using the HEL model, which is this one. So we've done one. You're currently in stage 2. You're also gonna do online activity development next week. And then step 4 and 5, I'm gonna record a video and put it in Canvas for you to watch in your independent time. And that's how we will conclude the sessions of the HEL model. Any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll stop here